Hi, thanks for joining AM Healing My Soul TV. I'm Vicki McClifty, and today I'm speaking with Kristine Colliver, who has been going through her own grief journey after the loss of her mum 18 months ago. Her mum passed away from motor neurone disease. So Kristine is going to share her journey through the grief, and also we'll be discussing about the motor neurone disease and what the effects are, and give us knowledge and awareness of what this disease is all about. So welcome today, Kristine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. If you'd just like to tell us your grief story of what you've been down the past, well, I don't know, your mother passed away 18 months ago, so the grief would have started before then when you found out about her disease.
Yeah, so my mother was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in July 2014.
Yeah.
And I don't think I actually knew what that meant. I don't think I knew much about motor neurone disease, except for that I'd heard that Stephen Hawking had it. I think a lot of people relate to that story. So my mother lived in Sydney and I live rurally in South Australia. So I moved my mum to live with us and I became her full-time carer. I think part of that was I just went into survival mode. So I don't know that I really had time to process what was going to happen and what that meant long term. It was just living day by day, looking after mum and making sure she was okay.
Yeah.
So when mum did die, I think it actually hit me really hard because I hadn't had time to process those feelings for the time that I cared for her. Mum only lived for 16 months after she was diagnosed. So when she died from motor neurone disease, and it was not a very nice journey, you know, it's not nice to watch. It's hard to watch someone that you love suffer. Yeah. And because we were rural, it was even a bit more difficult, and I hadn't heard of any organisations or knew of anyone that I could reach out to. So it was quite isolating. And then, like I said, when mum died, I think all the feelings and emotions hit me at once, as well as, you know, losing my best friend.
Must have been really hard for you. And I mean that it would have been a shock to start off with, I would have imagined, when you found out that she actually had it, and a shock to her as well. And the fact that you didn't have much support at the time either. Going through that would have been very difficult, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was very isolating, and yeah, it was difficult because you have to do, I guess, all the things that, you know, people do when someone's diagnosed with a terminal disease, get all your paperwork in order, and I had to get enduring power of attorney so I could sign papers for her and take care of her business and be her advocate. And then, you know, dealing with all different government departments and all that kind of thing. And I think because not much is known about motor neurone disease, people don't necessarily understand the urgency of what needs to happen when you have it. So, you can wait 6 weeks for that or 8 weeks for that. But when you have motor neurone disease, 8 weeks is such, it means so many changes have taken place in that time. And in fact, you may not even be alive. So 8 weeks is a really long time for someone with motor neurone disease.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of frustration and kind of battles where when I just wanted to be with my mum, instead I was, you know, battling with people on the phone and trying to find resources and trying to find respite and things like that. So that was difficult. Yeah.
But tell us about your story of grief, how you felt during the whole process and leading up to your mother's passing, and then afterwards, like, did it gel with you before she died that she was actually going to die with you?
I didn't I guess it did, but like I said, I really, when I look back now, think I was on autopilot. I was just about, looking after her and feeding her and doing everything for her. And one of the things, I actually got some counselling when I was caring for her, because we, as the counsellor explained, we lost some of our mother-daughter relationship, which was really sad because we were best friends, and because I was her carer. So it was, get up and dress her and wash her and cook for her and feed her and do the washing and make the bed and do the medical appointments and then ring someone and then pay the bills and then do lunch, and then this was every day, and get up during the night to look after her because she became a quadriplegic. Just her mind worked, but her body didn't.
Yeah.
So I was very much doing all that. And then, before she was sick, we used to go for coffee and laugh, and I'd tell her things, and we'd see movies together, and I'd cook for her, and we'd go outside and play with my puppy, and we lost a lot of that. So there was kind of that loss. And then when she went into palliative care, she went to see a specialist to see if she could go on a breathing machine, which doesn't prolong life, but just helps the quality of being able to get air in and out, because your diaphragm weakens, which is usually why people with motor neurone disease die, because they're unable to breathe anymore, unassisted. And so I thought we were going to be doing that, and she never came out of there. She died when we were there.
So the last 18 months, how have you been able to make yourself cope with the grief? Have you been going through all of the emotions, and has there been something what's kept you strong in going through that process?
Initially, nothing. Initially,
it's hard.
I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Sometimes even today it still feels a little bit surreal. Like I think, I've got to tell Mum about that, and I can't.
It's still very early. Even though 18 months sounds like a long time, but I know how I was, and probably it was 3.5 years before I actually started to be able to think more clearly, Kristine. So, you're still really in the early stages.
Yeah.
It takes time, and I think that's what we all need to understand, is that you have to be kind to yourself and allow yourself to go through that process. And if you don't, and if you try and hide away from those feelings, then it takes longer.
Yeah. So I think initially I had no idea even if I wanted to cope. And then I'm in a group called Business Chicks, and the global CEO of that actually reached out to me personally, and I was very inspired and touched by that. And I'm inspired by the way that she lives her life. So I don't know, something inside my head said, try and be graceful and learn from this. And so that, I guess that was a bit of a turning point for me. And then I decided that if I'm not going to stay in bed for the rest of my life, I need to take forward steps. So I got involved with groups and people that were like-minded and that were positive. And I also knew that if you move through fear, you grow. And I knew that I needed to grow. And so I started doing that. I went to a weekend, a 3-day conference with Business Chicks that I was petrified of being there with a whole lot of women that I don't know, and I did it. And I went overseas by myself for a week, and
travel's great.
I did some things that I was really scared of, but I just was reaching out for things that could help me and inspire me. And not any one of them I didn't come back thinking, well, I think I thought, oh, I'll come back and I'll feel like I'm cured, which I think is what the outside world expects for someone who's grieving, that, well, you've had this amount of time now, so now you're better. But it doesn't work like that.
No,
and that's very isolating as well.
Yeah.
I found that some people would be, say, oh, well, come on, after a week, let's go out. That'll make you feel better. And the last thing I wanted to do was go out, and being in a different location didn't stop what my mind, what was happening internally. But when I, of my own volition, was able to step out into different groups with different people at a time that I was ready, then it did make a difference to me. Yeah. And to continue to do those things made a difference to me, and not to try and surround myself with people that let me just be me. And I think that was one of my big learnings from it, that I had spent some time with people that said, or that where I felt guilty for being upset and for crying and being emotional. And then I felt worse, and then I felt more grief and more isolated. And then realising actually that you do need to just feel it. You just need to feel the pain, and you need to go through it. But you also need to surround yourself with people who allow you to do that.
Yeah, and I think what you said before, Kristine, about the time being right too, and it's, when the time is right, because everyone grieves, everyone is healing at a different rate. There's no set time to healing grief. And when you lose someone close to you, it's not really, you never get over it. It's just you learn how to live your life and make your life more meaningful, really, from what you've learned. And you become stronger. I think, that's my belief, is that you become stronger. If you can get through this, you can get through anything.
Yeah, I think the pain, I still miss my mum, I still cry, but I think the pain has a lesser grip on me.
Yeah, it's your whole body is consumed to start off with. And
and originally I actually felt physical pain, I felt actual pain in my heart.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
And I don't have that level of pain anymore. I miss my mum, but I know also that my mum didn't want to live like that. My mum wasn't actually scared of death. She was scared of suffering.
Yeah.
And so we had talked about it, and I honoured her decision and her feelings. I think it's just, like people say, it's kind of the selfishness of the people who are left with, it's how we feel, because I pray that, mum's in a better place.
And she would be, and she'd be here with you, helping.
Yeah.
I'm a total believer that we just can't see them.
Yeah.
That they're still here on our journey, and that's why I believe that, if we do something that, I try and do this to make my son proud of what I'm doing, because I feel like I'm being guided in some way by him to do this, to get this message out to people that, hey, look, we're all in this together. We're all going to suffer grief at some stage in our life, be it grief from a whole lot of different things, as we said, with, the loss of a person, but the loss of a way of life. That's something else that we will discuss. But, it's so important for people to understand that it needs to be talked about. You can't put up a mask, you can't put up a front when you're grieving.
No.
You can't, because you need help. You need help from others. You need that support.
And I think the more you do try and do that, and I did to an extent, because I was around people that, didn't want to see me cry or be sad or talk about my mum, and those things made it worse for me.
Yeah.
And so I do want to be able to talk about my mum.
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel more connected to her.
Yeah, and she's made you who you are today as well, and learned so much from your mum, and it's carrying through her legacy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So now I I give myself permission now to cry, and if I'm talking about mum and someone sees me cry and they're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to upset you," it's like, but it's okay because she's my mum and I missed her and that's sad, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So do you try and follow things that you like doing? I know that you mentioned that you like cooking and I liked you sent me some information that you like wine and shoes. I thought
I have size 13 feet, so I've turned, I'm always excited when I can find shoes that fit me.
That would be a bit frustrating. But, it's good to, I think also it's good to give yourself permission to laugh and to smile and to watch a bit of comedy and just have a laugh. Like I made an intention every day that I would watch something funny on TV. Yeah. I just had to try and get myself into that lighter place, rather than dwelling on all of the bad stuff, to actually try and watch something that would lighten my mood. That sort of was one thing. Yeah.
And I still, sometimes I'll still catch myself and I'll be thinking about the past, and I think that will lessen too, but thinking about, mum when she was sick and me caring for her, and it makes me sad, and I think, could I have done something better? And if we had an argument, I wish I didn't have that. And then I try and get myself out of that mindset because I can't actually change the past, and people have arguments and none of us do everything right all the time, and I want to be more present because it's at my present that I'm helpful to me and others, and I'm not helpful to anyone by, beating myself up about what happened or getting, really dwelling in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so what would you avoid if you had your time over again and wanted to give people a tip about, going through grief? What would you avoid next time?
I would avoid taking on people's opinions about grief, which I think I did when people said, kind of snap out of it and why don't you come out? We're going to have a business meeting, and I couldn't have thought of anything worse. And then I thought, then people would say, you're negative because you're upset. And I think I took that on board, and I was so full of everything else, I didn't need to take any of that on either.
Yeah.
So I would make sure that I just surround myself with people who are supportive and love me. And even though they don't necessarily understand, but they're willing to, put judgment aside to be supportive and care about me and just give me some space.
Yeah, it's very important, isn't it, to do that?
Yeah.
So what have you, that would be a huge thing, what you've learnt with your grief. So how's life today, 18 months after the death of your mum?
So I think I said I still cry. I still cry. I still miss mum. I'll be driving and something will happen and I'll have a memory and it makes me sad.
That's normal.
But I made a decision. I kind of gave myself, a year off last year, and then said this year I need to harness that sad energy and put it into something that's going to make a difference. So I'm on the board for Motor Neurone Disease South Australia now, and I'm a community visitor for MND, and I raise funds and I raise awareness. And I think that's actually helping me because I'm putting my energy into something that will make a positive difference instead of dwelling on my sadness.
Always helping others is going to help you.
Yeah. And the MND community, they're just amazing, and it is a community, and so I think they're my tribe. Sadly, it's a very transient tribe, and so that hits me every time someone dies.
That would be really tricky.
But I want to help them and advocate for people, and I've got some friends now in the MND community, and we we do different fundraisers together, and I want to make a difference in that space. So I pledged this year to raise $8,000, and next year I've got some other ideas about how I can grow my fundraising abilities. Yep. And now I'm also, I was just nominated for the board for MND Australia as well. So
nice.
The more I can make a difference and get the word out there, I think that's it's my newfound passion. And you know, if none of this had happened to Mum, I wouldn't be doing this. So
it's your journey in life. And so MND, motor neurone disease, can you describe what that is and how it's diagnosed and what people go through with this disease?
So it's actually really difficult to diagnose, which is one of the problems. There isn't really a single test that you can say, okay, this is what you've got. It can be sporadic and it can be familial. So if it has run through a family, there are genes that they know could mean that you'll get MND in the future. Yeah. As far as I know, our family didn't have it, but now that Mum has, it means I've got a higher chance. Right. So Mum had been to different specialists. She went to a cardiologist and an endocrinologist and then a neurologist, and they ended up doing a scan, which the scan doesn't show MND, but the scan ruled out tumours, because if it's a tumour, it could be operable. And then after that was ruled out, the neurologist did some nerve and muscle conductivity tests, and that showed that Mum's muscles, even visually you could tell, had collapsed and weren't working. Right. And so that after that she was diagnosed with motor neurone disease. So there's, which I've also come to learn because I went to a research symposium, there's a thing called split hand with motor neurone disease, and it's because your muscles are affected and they've wasted. Yep. So your nerves don't tell your muscles to work anymore, so basically your muscles stop working. And that can happen. The other thing is everyone's different with MND. There's no one one symptom. Some people have it in their speech first and their swallowing. Some people have it in their limbs first. My mum had drop foot and then lost her muscle strength in her legs to get up off a lounge and off a toilet, and then started falling over, and her hands, she couldn't open jars, and then she couldn't put a zipper up and down and couldn't do up her shoes. That was in the early days. Yeah. But it moves. The average diagnosis is about 27 months, but again, it varies in people, but Mum only lasted 16 months. So she essentially became a quadriplegic. So her mind wasn't affected at all. It doesn't affect your bladder or your bowels or your mind generally. Right. Only thing is that you actually physically can't walk, and so you can't. I had to feed Mum, I had to brush her teeth, I had to shower her, I had to dress her, I had to toilet her. I'd have to lift her into a car, lift her out of a car, put her to bed, roll her over, give her medication, everything.
I mean, and you said before there's not any, hardly any support for people that are having to look after their loved one who has MND.
Yeah, so I didn't know. I hadn't heard about Motor Neurone Disease South Australia, which is where I live now. Every state has a motor neurone disease association that they can reach out to, but I wasn't aware that we had one. And even through talking with health professionals and different people, it was never mentioned. So Mum and I had the first 8 months or more, maybe 10 months after she was diagnosed without any assistance from Motor Neurone Disease South Australia. So that was really hard. once they became involved, it was a lot better. Because obviously that's what they do and that's what they're specialised in, and they can provide education and equipment and facilitate, with medical assistance, and they have information sessions, but I didn't have that for the first 10 months.
Yeah, that's important that people know about these the whole supportive organisation of MND, because, there must be, there's every state, do they have?
Yes, every state has an association, and it's hugely important, which is one of my passions, to raise awareness as well as funds, because they go hand in hand, that people know that they can reach out to us or to an association in their state, because it's very isolating disease. It's a very rapidly moving disease. Yeah. It's always fatal. Yeah. And it's unlike, it's unlike other diseases, and they don't know what causes it. There's no treatment and there's no cure. So it's more just about managing quality of life, making sure the person has the best quality of life.
Yeah. I think that, the more money that's raised, hopefully they might be able to find at least what causes it, because the cause, that can go a long way towards, finding a cure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So there's lots of research going on at the moment, which is really very positive, and there's things going on overseas as well, trials and things like that. So that, that is very encouraging and awesome, but sadly there's a lot of people dying from motor neuron disease. Not the numbers, I guess, that, with some other diseases, but like I said, with motor neuron disease, it's always fatal. So there's
what
no
are numbers around it, Kristine?
I'm not sure in other states. In South Australia, it's usually around 200 people at any one time. So I think it's every day or every week, 2 people die and 2 people are diagnosed.
Okay.
Yeah. In other states, obviously, with larger populations, those numbers are sadly larger.
Are there groups at all that support the carers, like yourself and?
The associations, the MND associations do that as well. So again, I didn't know about that. And, the more awareness they get and the more funds they raise, the more they're able to do. So that's one of the things they do as well, is support carers, and also looking at setting up services for people who are grieving as well, which is an awesome thing as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what things can be done, like for raising money? Like you went for a walk, you did a long walk. So are they the sort of events, like you're just to hold yearly events or every so many months, or what's the?
Yeah, so we just had nationally MND week, which is in May.
Yeah.
And we hold the Walk to Defeat Motor Neuron Disease. Okay. And it was an awesome day, and I'm not sure if you can see, but I've got some blue hair from that. And we had nearly 1,000 people, which was the one I went to 3 years ago. The first walk I did with Mum, we pushed Mum in a wheelchair. Yeah. The last 2, Mum hasn't been here, but I think the first walk we had 300 people, and this year we had nearly 1,000. So that was just fabulous. Yeah. So every state holds that. We do lots of sausage sizzles and, those sorts of things. We're about to hold a gala dinner in South Australia. And personally, like I said, I've pledged to raise $8,000 this year. So I guess a lot of people who have been affected by it, if there are a lot of those people in our community, because they care to raise funds and awareness for the disease. I did the Bay to City in March, and we've got City to Bay, I think, in September this year, so I'll do a 12K walk for that. Okay. There was, I'm not sure what state it is, but there was a 100-year-old grandmother who did a parachute jump to raise money for motor neuron disease. So it's really just limited by our imagination.
Yeah, it is. make it fun,
Yeah,
why not?
absolutely.
Oh, well, we'll definitely advertise with AM Healing My Soul TV all of the events. You keep us posted on all the events, and then I'll have all of the contact numbers for the different organisations within Australia for support. I think it's very important that everyone knows about it, because you can't be stuck on your own like yourself. That's just crazy to have to deal with it all on your own when you don't have to.
Yes. Thank you for that. I think, that's a huge thing, even with the grief and everything. Just the isolation of it is really difficult. So the more people, like I said, and I think that's why we've connected as well. I really do believe the more that you reach out and you find your tribe, then it gains momentum as well, and you find more and more people on your journey that you can help and that can help you.
Yeah.
And grow the message and help other people. And I just think it's so important. If you had had this resource last year, it would have been my saviour.
Yeah. Well, you're still here, Kristine. So
yes, I know, but it's so important, and I just think so many people will benefit from it. It's an amazing thing that you're doing.
Well, I mean, I went through it myself, and I know that it was something that really lacked when I was going through it. I couldn't find anything of this nature. And, I mean, I read a lot of books and spoke to different doctors and I had my friends. But when you've got when you've got friends who haven't been through the journey that you've been through, it's very hard to communicate how you feel. And when you can actually see people and experience what we've experienced online, and you don't have to go anywhere, basically just watch it from your lounge room.
Yep.
I think it's important, because I know I didn't want to go anywhere. When I first was, for one, I didn't want to just put my head out the front door, because I'm sure that my face was, all the time was pretty horrible. And I didn't want to put up a brave front, because it's too hard to just going down to the shops was hard, because
it's exhausting.
Someone saying to me, I didn't want to talk about it, because it meant that it made it real.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be real, because I was still in denial that my son had passed. So I felt it really important. This is why it's become my purpose and my passion in life, is to do this, because it doesn't matter who you are in life or where you are, someone is going to be suffering grief of some sort.
Oh, absolutely.
And you do feel like you're on your own, and you're not. And it's when you start talking about it, and then other people open up, and you think, man, gee, they're in a worse situation than me, and I thought I was bad.
Yeah.
Or similarly, you're going through exactly the same thing I'm going through. It builds that community, and it builds that feeling of being supported by other people, and it always lessens the burden.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, if you're seeing someone who's in a worse position, even now, I'll do the walk and I've got a sore knee, and I'm walking with my friend who's got motor neurone disease, and it's very, very humbling. There's a lot to be grateful for. We just need to find the people that should be in our tribe, I think, that are
I think so.
Get the best out of each other and help people.
Yeah, and these people that you're talking about, I'm sure that they've really had to face something that we haven't faced yet, and to have such strength and courage to do and just be who they are, and know that they've got this death sentence.
Yeah,
they know that it's around the corner. And I know you shared with me last time that a lot of them are just very inspirational people.
Oh, incredible people. At this walk to defeat MND, because there's a lot of people with MND there and their families, it really has a big sense of community. I guess it's nearly like an oxymoron, I don't know, but it's such a fun day.
Yeah.
To supporting such a disgusting disease. It's kind of known in the community as the beast.
Yeah.
But the day was beautiful because people would just reach out to each other and care about each other. And there's these amazing people, and they're not talking about death, not talking about it, but that's not the centre of their world. They also want to raise funds and awareness while they're here, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, they know their days are numbered.
Yeah.
And hey, I think we should all live that way, thinking that our days are numbered, because you're not wasting each day. I mean, that's something that I've learned since my son's passing, is that, we've only got a short time here, really. And everything is before Adam and after Adam died. And before he died, I lived like a lot of people, where my head was in the sand, and I was just coasting along, busy doing the normal things that mothers do, but not really appreciating what I had, and not really understanding the fragility of life as well, and not getting the most out of it. Whereas now it's like I wake up each morning and think, okay, what am I going to do today that I can help someone? It's
a different mindset. It's also, I think, I was there when my mum actually took her last breath, and that was, it was hard I wanted to be with her and to make it as peaceful as possible, but it's pretty hard to wrap your head around that's what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And that even still seems surreal to have someone there and then they're not there.
Yeah, I know. It's really a tough call, and no one really wants to go through it, but it's part of life. And I think that's what you come to terms with as you get through your grief. That death is really just a part of life, and we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And someone is going to be feeling the same way about you, or myself when we pass. And it's, it doesn't matter. I mean, that it's going to happen, but it doesn't make it easy.
No.
And there's always going to be that horrible stage where people go through. But you hope that your death, my death, or whoever's death will become someone's meaning to actually become the person that they're supposed to be in life.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Another thing I often think of when I'm not feeling sad or in it is that in my logical head it's just a change of energy, really. Our body being here or not being here is just a change of energy, but it's a lot for a human mind to get around.
It's really hard when you can't see. I mean, some people have the gift and they can see it, and they've seen the other side, and I wish that I could. I'd love to be able to communicate with my son and my dad. It's getting a little bit crowded up there at the moment. There'll be more up there than down here. And that's a part of the fact of life, unfortunately, because we feel so alone when you can't communicate with them. But I will be having some people on the show who can, and that's going to offer some hope to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I think so. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I've experienced a few things lately, and it's been pretty incredible to be able to hear what my son's been saying. And I encourage anyone who wants to go that path to do it, because you really need that support. That knowing that they're around, and just hope that they're not in the bathroom with you.
It all comes back to, doesn't it, to that connection. That's why we're here. That's really, to me, I guess, the essence of life is feeling connected.
That is, and I feel that this is what is it. I know it's a grief community that I'm creating, but it's about community, and it's building something that has broken down in society over the last, I don't know how many years, but it seems to have crumbled with the internet and with all of the technology, and everyone's so busy all the time working and not having time for other people in their lives.
Yeah, and I think, pushing, it's a tricky one to get your head around, so people don't know how to deal with it, so they push it aside or they dismiss it or, judge you or all those kind of unpleasant things that are the last thing that you need when you're in depths of sadness.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I'd swap anything to have my mum back, but from the grief, like a lot of good's happened.
Yeah. And that's one thing that you can take with you. And I have too. I mean, my life is much more meaningful than what it's ever been. It's, I have goals and dreams, and I never had those before, really, not to the extent of what I have now. And, I think if you can make a good thing out of something that seems so negative, but it really isn't. They're still here. It's just that we can't see them. And I think the more that people are aware of that, and the more that we can support each other, then it won't have to be as sad. It won't have to be the lonely path.
Yeah. I mean, it's just emotional. That's all it is, and it's just part of being human, really. So I guess if we could demystify it,
the soul experiencing the soul is experiencing human existence at the moment, and it's a tough one going through this. I think we're in Earth School at the moment.
I'm very happy to be part of the grief community.
And I think it's trying to lighten a little bit too, because it doesn't have to have that scariness about it, grief. It doesn't have
not catchy,
because grief covers so many things. It's not I mean, people have a fear of death, and I think since I lost my son, I don't fear it anymore. Like I've lost that fear, and I think, no, he's still around, and I know he has an influence, and you can still have an influence in the afterlife.
Yeah.
But it's important, I think, to just have that knowledge and that feel like you are supported by the universe, and that we're all here together. We're all the same, really. We are all the same. It's just we've got different little our cases that we are, our human cases, that are different, but we're all the same. Yeah. And it's just energy, as you said. But the motor neurone disease, I really love to get that out to everyone, the awareness of this disease, and try and raise funds to help Kristine with her cause, and to those people that are stuck with the disease at the moment. And I think it's extremely important to support every state with this, and hopefully raise money around Australia to find a cure for this dreaded disease, so that people can live their lives the way they're supposed to live them here on Earth.
Yeah, that's the aim, and we'll take any support we can get, and I think it's very kind of you to reach out and help with that as well.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, Kristine. Thanks.
Maybe next year we'll get you dyeing your hair blue too.
Just don't make me shave it. I'd rather go blue.
We can do blue.
Yeah. On that note, thanks so much for sharing your story, Kristine, and we'll have all of your details, the motor neurone disease details, up on the website with your interview, so people can contact MND if they need be, and hopefully raise some money for supporting your cause.
Thank you very much. It's been awesome talking to you.
Thanks, Kristine.
See you later.
Bye.